Excellent. Everybody, welcome to episode number 7 of Operations Unplugged. I'm joined once again by my co-host, John Appleby. Welcome back, John. And I'm also joined by our special guest once again. Welcome back to the podcast, Chris Kernaghan.
Great to have you having me
here. Excellent. Sorry, it's playing back in my ear. I always make that mistake. When will I learn to mute YouTube so that I don't hear myself about 25 seconds after I said something? Apparently, I never learn. So it's great to be back after our hiatus of about 4 weeks. That was my fault. I do apologize.
It was we called Brenton's holiday.
Yeah, let's see what my wife thinks about that particular description.
Yeah, those 4 weeks. That's not a good thing. No. Let's not poke any bears in that regard.
No, let's not. So yes, my wife had a gorgeous baby girl about 4 weeks ago, so I disappeared for a few weeks. But it's great to be back. Welcome, guys. What's new in your world?
Well, I don't know.
Well, you have a green screen, Chris, and a random floating chair I can see to your right.
Yeah, that's Anna. She's down here with me, so she wanted to be part of the podcast. And but yeah, okay, thanks. Sorry, Anna. Lots actually been going on in my world. Lots of interesting stuff around the work that I'm doing. But I know that you guys actually had a really, really good. You've gone live on GCP. So you have with your product,
hot off the press yesterday. John, do you want to take that one all together?
Yeah, I mean, it's really exciting for me because, and I wish I understood more about this than I do, and it's on my kind of to-do list, but maybe we can have a discussion about it. But, we decided really to do a modern deployment approach, which is a sort of Anthos compatible Kubernetes containerized approach, which deploys each of our components separately into containers. And, working with Google has been absolutely fascinating because it's a completely automated process. So everything has to be right. The security review is automated, and the library tests for GPL compliance is automated, and it really helps us modernize the software platform. So I'm kind of excited about that. I'm also excited because I think Google's done a really good job of building a partner ecosystem around its cloud platform. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, no, that Anthos engine is absolutely phenomenal. So it is.
So what is Anthos?
Well, it's
tell us.
It's their platform. It's their serverless platform, effectively. So it is from. So we're using it. I've been looking at it for some operational startup and shutdown stuff. So I have and then the Kubernetes engine itself. That's part of my Staycation project, because while I'm going off on vacation starting on Monday, and one of the projects that I have is actually, as you say, getting more into Kubernetes deployments, and I'm doing a combination. So I have a Raspberry Pi cluster and also a Intel NUC for doing stuff. But the whole goal is to understand more about Kubernetes so that I can then leverage that within the GCP environment, because their GCP container engine is phenomenally powerful. So it is, and it works really, really well with the Ansible stuff that I'm doing for orchestration. But there's some interesting stuff that I caught a sniff of. So, for example, I've got an ex-customer doing some interesting stuff in Anthos on Hana takeover and replication. So rather than having a pacemaker cluster, what they actually have is they have something running in Anthos, which is basically a watchdog. So when the primary Hana node is not responding, it then pings and does a couple of checks, and then if it's still not responding after, say, 3 pings, it initiates a takeover. So it does without clustering, which is really, really cool. So there's some really interesting use cases for the engine.
And what seems to be particularly interesting about Anthos, right, is it's a multi-cloud solution, right? So this is not a Google specific solution. It'll run in any cloud, and you can also deploy Anthos on-prem, right?
I didn't know that.
I thought that was kind of the point of it.
I've learned something new today, John.
We need to bring someone new on. It's the fact checker.
Yeah, the fact checker.
We need to fact check John. Hello.
No, that's what was so interesting about Anthos is Google designed it to be not about GCP.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, just even a cursory Google, and you can see quite quickly it does work on-prem as well. In fact,
yeah, I think it only supports AWS and on-prem.
Yeah, interesting.
But that's really interesting.
I need to have a look at that.
But that's kind of key.
If it works at home, if it works on-prem, then it means I can actually do stuff that's actually directly takeable. So I can actually do that. Ooh.
It's really
I just added something to your staycation there.
But it also
really has.
But it also reflects what's interesting about Google, right? Which is that they think of openness across the cloud platform as being more important than an embrace and extend mentality.
Yeah.
Well, there's an interesting question I want to.
They're actually pushing. If you look at the cloud providers, and this is one of the charges that has been leveled against Amazon massively, is that they've taken all the open source and given very, very little back. And Google is nearly the exact opposite.
Open source, taxes, where do you want to start?
Wasn't going to get
environment.
Into that. I wasn't going to get into that, but this is one of the interesting things is the fact that Google have been a much better open source citizen than Amazon have.
Yeah, and they pay their taxes.
Mostly.
So moving on from taxes, Chris, let me ask you an actual question, which is, so you're talking about Staycation and you're going to have a look at this stuff. For anybody else, because I guarantee there's somebody else going to be watching this who's going to be like, actually, I wouldn't mind knowing a little bit more about that. Where are you getting your info? Where are you actually starting?
So basically, I'm starting with Ansible and then moving on to Kubernetes. So Jeff Geerling is the Ansible guy, and he's got some really, really good podcasts and information on deploying Kubernetes clusters using Ansible. Okay, so I've basically got 4 Raspberry Pis and Ansible set up on another Raspberry Pi as the orchestrator, and then just deploy the code and see how it all works. And so Jeff Geerling,
or does it work?
Yeah.
And
it'll start that way.
If you Google for Jeff Geerling and GKE, you can read about how you can then use Ansible to deploy GKE into your on-prem systems, so that it becomes part of the Anthos environment. And that sort of sounds really interesting. But here's my question: is how come SAP haven't done this? I mean, so I'm thinking about Kubernetes and Anthos. And the SAP NetWeaver stack seems like the perfect sort of serverless scenario for scale up, scale down.
Now, oddly enough, that actually is that's where I want to end up, right? So at the moment, I have an ASCS and the HANA Express edition running in Kubernetes. Okay, the next stage was actually getting the application server, and the way I looked at it was. Have the architecture is actually quite simple. You use the log on load balancing, so you spin up containers with a dialogue work process and an update process, okay, and a spool process maybe, and then that is something that one user would connect to, or a number of users would connect to using the log on load balancing. And what you do is you specify the minimum number of those containers that you actually need. The trick is getting the app server to register with the log on load balancer, which you need a script to do in Bash, okay, and then deregister whenever it's not there. And then
you make that part of the container approach.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So you bring up another.
As soon as it comes up, it runs the script, registers, and go. And now what you actually have is a very scalable environment. So you do, and we were actually internally we're looking at that for developer setups.
Mm-hmm.
So it actually becomes really quite easy.
But imagine that for the forget about that. Imagine that for the largest companies in the world
Right.
that have these huge mainframe deployments. I mean, this is pay by the minute for what you need.
Mm-hmm.
If you can just, you really can be just in time, because with SAP systems, you can wait for the dialogue process time to deteriorate a little. I mean, you can get to sort of 300 milliseconds now, right? Or so 250, 300. You can say, well, wait for it to get to 500 and then we'll spin up, or 400. And you could bring one up in moments, right?
But the trick is the supportability of the actual architecture. That's the trick.
I understand, but isn't that the whole point of GKE? Yeah,
but it's SAP support, and in the fact that if you run into an issue and you log a call, and then they go, "What is that? How does that work?" And then you go, "Actually, it's a Kubernetes environment." And they go, right, so
that's not supported.
Yeah, we're not doing that. We're not doing it, and that's part of the trick. But
that brings us back to the question: why aren't they supporting it? I think which is the question you started out with, John.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't ask that question, but I think the answer is, by the way, they do, because how do you think that NetWeaver and Cloud Platform, ABAP and Cloud Platform works?
Fair. Yeah.
I mean that is Kubernetes. Well, that's the Gardener architecture that SAP used, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Surely, I mean, it's probably monolithic rather than truly fully containerized. It's not quite what we're talking about.
No. So I haven't actually seen the actual architecture of the NetWeaver that sits in there.
I can't imagine ABAP and NetWeaver is scale out, is it? It's a single app.
So yeah, possibly. But the thing about it is that the container, and this has changed a little bit. A container, once you get over a certain memory limit, and also a number of processes running within the container, you really get into diminishing returns, and the container itself becomes a bottleneck. So the idea of having, when you get into, it's not on. Sorry. Once
you burning the dinner, Chris?
I'm not burning dinner. I turned the dinner off before I came down here. But I'm now being told otherwise by the other chef.
Maybe the other chef put dinner back on.
Yeah. Did you put dinner back on again? No, she didn't. That's okay. We're just waiting for Mummy. But once you get over sort of 32 gig of RAM and 3 or 4 processes, you get into diminishing returns, and the container itself becomes a bottleneck. So that's the problem. So, but yeah, in terms of the architecture, I'd love to see it. So, in terms of what they're running, I've seen Gardener, so I have, and it's actually really quite cool. So that is the Gardener stuff, but it has extended Kubernetes beyond what the base specification is, and part of there's a little bit of nervousness in some areas that because they've extended it. How useful is it to other organizations? Because they've open sourced it. They've actually, SAP again has been a good open source citizen and open sourced the Gardener code.
They have, but Red Hat are of course trying to get into the game with OpenStack as well to extend Gardener. Yeah. That is not so open source, right?
Yeah. But the Red Hat stack itself is interesting, but it's very, very good for obviously on-prem deployments. So it's a duplication when you're looking at the hyperscalers. So it is. So
well, I've a much broader question, because part of this conversation has completely lost me. I'll be happy to admit, but that's okay. I was living under a rock / baby for the last 4 weeks.
Yes.
How much, if any, or all of this was discussed at Sapphire, or was there anything around this stuff? How was Sapphire? How did it play out?
I actually find Sapphire to be really quite interesting this year, because it was virtual. Here, give me that. Because it was virtual, I actually got to go to more sessions. I actually got to most of the sessions, which was fabulous, because there were fluffy sessions as well as technical sessions that needed that I could watch. Hold on a second, sorry. So yeah, so I could actually get a lot more sessions, which I really loved. I got to go to women in tech sessions. I got to go to leadership sessions, and that was actually really quite cool. In terms of the technical stuff, I didn't actually see as many technical sessions as I would have done at Sapphire, but obviously it's a business conference, so
that probably wasn't a focus for the recordings.
No, it wasn't. There was a
but
lot
actually,
more.
Interestingly, your feedback is quite aligned to, so like, for example, WWDC for Apple is running this week. People are saying the same thing, which is that they're able to sit down and kind of actually get to the sessions rather than, and let's face it, we've all been there. Oh, these are the 7 sessions I plan to go to today, except I bumped into John in the hallway and now I'm going to one of these sessions.
Yeah, I mean, that's so. Brenton, I've got to say, so partially, I was running an event the same week, an internal event. We were supposed to have our yearly offsite where we go to somewhere cool, and we hung out at home instead. But that's life. And so I was not very engaged in Sapphire, and that to me is the biggest problem. And there's an ASUG event going on right now, ASUG Forward, which I spoke at yesterday. And I found exactly the same, really difficult to engage in a virtual event because the business is still going on. And when you're in an event, you can be kind of 80% on the event and 20% on the business. But you can't, it doesn't work that way. I've really struggled. And that's not a criticism of SAP or ASUG or anyone else. It's just...
It's digital events. Because at the end of the day, you're still sitting at home. You're still sitting in front of your email. If an email comes in, you will respond. If something happens, you will react.
Well, more than that, I've got 20 calls scheduled.
Well, and also you can't claim, oh, sorry, the Sapphire Wi-Fi didn't work. you don't have that excuse anymore.
But no, you're right in the fact that even, Sapphire has been over a week now, and I'm still sort of catching up on the sessions. So
I still haven't watched them, and I will. I always do. But so tell me, what's new? What is new in the world of SAP? What's the big thing?
Oh, God.
And I spotlighted your video just so we can really, get to grips with this.
Oh, thank you very, very much. Thank you very, very much. Right. Okay. So what have we got? So obviously new versions of Business Objects, new versions of Data Hub. Okay. Hana SP5.
It's changed name, right? It's like Data Accelerator or something now, right?
Yeah, it's Data Intelligence.
So it is. SAP Marketing went out again and changed another name.
So Hana SP5 is actually going to be really, really cool, simply just because of the changes it's made to the storage engine. Okay. That actually is going to really bring down the TCO on the storage, which is phenomenal. Okay, and then they've done some tweaks on Hana Cloud as well. Obviously, the big thing is that it's on the Azure platform as well as Amazon. Okay,
right.
So that's actually pretty cool.
I'm really excited about Hana Cloud, by the way. I was talking to Irfan Khan about this a couple of weeks ago, and I think it's really interesting because they've actually the previous Hana Cloud was Hana installed onto a cloud VM.
Yeah.
Now you're getting a database, not just a tenant, right? You're really getting just a schema. And so you're not paying for all of that overhead. It's containerized.
They actually went back and containerized it properly and decoupled storage from compute.
Right. And in doing so, the TCO works finally, right? And that's really interesting. So for software like us, and this isn't a podcast about us, but occasional thoughts on it, it's actually potentially interesting, right? Because we could take a similar approach to what we did with Google. We can containerize with Gardener, the Avantra processes, run against the Hana Cloud, and then wrap that up as a marketplace item. And that's actually that's quite elegant, and elegant's not a word that is always used to describe SAP, right?
Yes, it is not.
First.
No, definitely not. But it is one of those things. I remember having conversations, I think it was this time last year with SAP, where they showed the architecture, and it blew me away. Absolutely blew me away. More about the SAP Data Warehouse. They're adding a business semantic layer to it, which actually is really quite cool. Okay. And then because of that, they've got better. They've actually got a much stronger story with the Analytics Cloud. So you have, because you've got those two things side by side, you've got data warehouse and the Analytics Cloud. You can do a lot more with that. Data intelligence, and then simplified pricing on the cloud platform. Which
interesting. Tell me more.
So because there is, well, no, that's the headline. There is simplified pricing on the cloud platform.
Okay.
So it's what is it? There's a particular message. Yes, it's not based on message volume. Right. So it isn't. It's standard pre-packaged integration scenarios. So they're only charged for their custom integrations or third-party integrations, not their SAP native ones, which is interesting. And then
that's good. That's good because because that was one of the challenges they had for the last couple of years, which was the intelligence APIs were really bloody expensive to run.
Exactly, but there is one more, which is around. Actually, it's about partner. It was actually about partner extensions on the cloud platform, and there it is. There, yes. It's difficult to understand how you monetize on the cloud platform at the moment. So there isn't. That was one of the things that I found. There we go. General availability of managed Kubernetes runtime. So basically, they've built up Kyma, and they've now opened it for partners to run the extensions on Kyma. Okay, but one of the things that was interesting was there doesn't seem to be a monetization model, or not one that's discussed in the actual details of it. Now, obviously, it's a very partner specific thing, and therefore it may have been discussed in partner sessions, but on the announcements and things like that, it didn't really seem to be anything major there. And then there's a couple of technical things. So they have a new version of the web IDE. It's called Business Application Studio. It is supposed to look and feel like Visual Studio Code.
Why don't they just use Visual Studio Code?
I know. Do you know what? I actually have it in my notes. It says, why not use Visual Studio Code? Why not VSC? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like there's a number of community extensions already for ABAP,
and
HANA and stuff like that already built for Visual
I mean,
Studio
I must
Code.
say, fair juice to Microsoft. I mean, I remember when VSC came out. I mean, folks that used to use Sublime Text or so some of those really customizable editors, and I was one of them. VSC has just come on leaps and bounds, and it's so extendable. It's just awesome. And I know Eclipse was that for a while, a long time ago. So there's always a flavor of the month. But
no one ever liked Eclipse though. Eclipse is a tool that you use because you had to use. I think Visual Studio Code is great. But coming back to Sapphire though, here are my takeaways at least. So first, this is a new SAP.
Yes, very much.
It's a more German SAP.
Yeah.
For good or for bad, whatever it is, but Jen Morgan's departure has shifted that, and we're seeing that. I personally, I'd like to see a little bit more diversity there, but I'm sure they know about that.
You're not the first person to say that.
Little bit, yeah.
I'm sure they're figuring that one out. The second thing is, I think it's going to be a more application-centric SAP. I wouldn't be surprised, for example, if they did some divestitures of potentially infrastructure as a service or non-core. I haven't made any announcements. I don't have any inside information, but it would fit that they would. I think you'll see a focus on the core of their business. I think that core of the business is going to be unashamedly S4. There's the second thing I took, and the third thing I took away is, aside from what we talked about containerization, which I think is really positive, where's the innovation? So really the last thing that SAP really did was HANA 10 years ago.
I can't believe it's 10.
It's 10 years old. Yeah,
I know.
Yeah. The question is, what's next? And I think that there are real kind of existential threats to SAP from players like Google, who are really surrounding the core of SAP with innovation and data science and ML and AI and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And doing phenomenal use cases. Rob Enslin was speaking to some of these, phenomenal fintech use cases, phenomenal supply chain use cases. And so if SAP really wants to be the player in the applications, we've got to think about how can they be the player that wins innovation as well as the core.
Yeah.
And I think is what they need to figure out.
Well, it's interesting because, when I look at it from my point of view, especially when I was, through the use of the automation, we've actually brought down the cost of the migrations to the point where, for a salesperson, selling a pure cloud migration doesn't actually make, it doesn't give them a lot of commission. So they need to package it with something else. So the option is
one that was Leonardo services or something like that. Yeah,
exactly. So the other option is, do we package it with a Google application service or an SAP application transformation service? And that's actually just become really, really interesting, because as there's my Google just activated. So as you start to move up the value chain, you get into these fintech and supply chain use cases, and they're becoming more and more prevalent. So
I totally agree, but my question is, how does SAP monetize that? I get how they protect the core. I think that what they've done a really good job on with S4 is ensuring that customers will renew for the next 20 years. But how do you grow the business?
Now you see this. So this is one of the questions that Dan Howlett asked on Diginomica is, what happens, because the hyperscalers are chasing these application services in the mid stack,
because it makes it so sticky.
I know, but he did ask the question, both of Rob Enslin and Christian Klein, how are you guys able to play well together? And they gave the most political answer. So they did.
Which was,
we're friends. SAP's going to look after and protect the core bit of functionality, and yes, of course, they will work with Google and other hyperscalers on their particular strengths. So, for example, with Google, it's around machine learning and that sort of thing. And it was a very, very political answer. But then, actually, they did raise the point in the fact that the hyperscalers are starting to actually deploy within and bring services into the application stack on their own native technologies. So
I won't say which hyperscaler, but I was in a meeting with one of the hyperscalers earlier this year, and they didn't say this, but this is what I heard. Sometimes it's in the room. They don't care as long as the workload runs on their platform.
Yeah,
they don't care if it's HANA, or if it's Microsoft, or SQL, or what the platform is. They don't care whether you do innovation or not. I mean, it's better for them because you're using BigQuery, that's really a tie-in for Google, or Power BI is a tie-in for Microsoft. But if you're running on their platform, that's what matters.
Yeah.
But I think your point though about Rob and Christian's is interesting. Sorry, there's airplanes going on in Chris's background.
I know, don't.
And the green screen is being pulled back now.
I know.
You were so proud of your green screen.
It's going to be shredded.
Also, I do like the fact that your t-shirt, which I'm sure you chose specifically, is completely reversed, because you told me you deliberately reversed your video so nobody can read it. It's great.
Yeah, I can turn it back around again if you want.
But yes. Here's the thing: is I get the Google model, which is it's essentially an embrace and extend model, right? So you re-platform onto GCP, you surround with innovation, it becomes incredibly sticky, valuable to the customer.
Yeah,
got it. What I don't understand is how SAP grows its business beyond that core. I get how it's protected the core, and that's phenomenally important. But we had Data Hub, which I thought was a really interesting product, but I don't know, that is the next HANA. And you've got to bear in mind that HANA, generated billions and billions of revenue for SAP. But most of the customers have now got it, Many of the customers have got S4. They will deploy S4. Probably coronavirus delays the deployments, such as life. 2030 deadline remains where it is. Still got 10 years. But where's the growth play? And McDermott's solution for this was to buy it. But I don't think that's going to be Klein's solution. It's not his style as far as I know him.
No, he's a builder. He's a builder, not a buyer. So it's, it could be within the scope of what they're doing at the moment in terms of SAP Cloud Platform and Kubernetes and that sort of stuff. But I don't see where that extends to.
The word innovation is not what comes to mind when I think of what they're doing there. It's almost, in some ways, in my mind, rightly or wrongly, it feels like catch up.
I mean, so I feel like there's two scenarios, right? So there is a sales scenario where SAP is bought by somebody as a tuck-in.
Mm-hmm.
It could happen. I mean, functionally, from a Google perspective, SAP is a tuck-in. No comment about whether they would buy them or not. And the other then question is, can SAP really position itself as a true multi-cloud player, where they connect the fabric of these clouds and help the customer be autonomous? Because what CIOs don't want is lock-in, which comes back to why Anthos is really interesting, because Anthos, in theory, allows Google to promise a less lock-in than Amazon and Microsoft. Yeah. But if SAP could figure that out, because to me, it really feels like when you're deploying SAP on a hyperscaler, you're choosing your bet.
It's interesting because we talk about the stickiness, and I think Microsoft solved, made the stickiest call ever, which was Office 365. That has to be probably the best bet that they ever made. So it was because it made it so incredibly sticky, and I don't know where Microsoft or where SAP have that. No.
Interesting, isn't it? Anyway, we'll see. We'll see what happens in TechEd. That will probably,
although they have now announced that TechEd is only a digital event, I do believe.
Well, yeah.
So well, I think we all knew it was going to come, but let's face it, they hadn't really announced it. I got to move.
In short news, TechEd is now digital. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. So yeah.
And we're going to have to think about how we do that differently, and hopefully they're starting to think about how they can work with partners. That was the other thing with SAPPHIRE was, from a partner perspective, it was 0 out of 10. Actually, it wasn't 0 out of 10 because they gave us our money back. So,
that's positive.
Yeah, which wasn't a given. So thank you, SAP. It's actually very appreciated. But from a partner perspective, these events are really important because they're networking events, opportunity to educate.
Agreed.
I think that's actually the one thing that I missed the most was the serendipitous conversations.
Yes,
that you have with people.
Yeah, the chance meetings.
Yeah, and I quite often do. I try to end the day or have a day where I learn something new every day. That the whole week that I'm there, and it's obviously quite easy because I'm quite thick. So learning something new is not that difficult. But
I wasn't going to say anything.
Yeah. I wanted to get it in there before you did.
I would never do such a thing.
You really? But yeah, it's those serendipitous conversations that I missed in this one.
Absolutely.
So it was
and
tough.
You have to create that yourself now.
Yes.
Which for some people is natural and for some is not.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to, and the diversity of those conversations is what matters. I mean, I had a call with Thomas Otter and Maggie Fox earlier this week, and it was just wonderful to hear different perspectives. We sit, and we're doing it right now, by the way. We're sitting in a bubble.
Yes.
And
shouting in that bubble.
Probably shouting, sitting in a bubble, shouting in it. Yeah.
But this is one of the reasons why it's important that, and this is something that I've always sought to do, which is not to sit entirely in that SAP bubble, is to work on interesting stuff outside that SAP bubble, which is one of the reasons why, you know, that's what brought me to Devops, for example. So the Devops Enterprise Summit is this week in London. I've been doing work with the guys on the Devops Enterprise Forum, doing you know, some thought leadership and a white paper on ERP. Okay, and that's actually been really important, because I'm working with, for example, Adrian Cockcroft from Amazon. So he's one of the lead evangelists at Amazon. And I get to hear lots and lots of stories about other things that are happening in enterprise IT that aren't SAP related. So
what was the, so you said you put together a white paper. What was the conclusion of the white paper? Or can you reveal that yet? It is the last day of the conference.
Yeah. Well, so there's a number of things actually in the white paper. One is, you know, how do you actually reduce the time to upgrade? We posited that there is an argument for a business process reliability engineer, or a reliability owner. So where you have site reliability engineers they take responsibility for the end-to-end stability and availability of a service within an application stack. There is an argument for a business process reliability owner, because one of the biggest constraints in any project that we do with an SAP is that there is a business process owner, right? Or a super user within the business that we use to run tests and things like that, but they are a finite and very constrained resource. Okay, if you formalize that as a reliability position, then they're not focused on the execution of that business process, but actually they're focused on the stability,
keeping it up.
Yeah, the stability and the performance of that process. Okay, so their task is, you own the reliability of that business process. That means you're responsible for the performance of it, the testing of it, and the change of that business process, and have at it. Okay, and therefore what you end up with is these people are now freed up to actually do the good practices of keeping the test scripts up to date, implementing automation, being part of that change process. But it's obviously it's something that we would like to see. Whether or not we would actually see it is a different matter. We think that, you know, within the confine, you know, as companies seek to do more and shift left more and do things faster, I think there's a really, really strong case for it. It's just whether companies want to invest the money and actually to do it. But I would be interested in your thoughts, John, because you're very quiet right now, and that means you're thinking something.
No, and
you think I'm wrong.
Well, it's funny. I just have a separate bugbear that was just on my mind. So you
weren't concentrating on what I was saying.
No, and my bugbear though is it's interesting. No, and my bugbear is interesting, and I wanted to get in before the call. So we were on home projects and my staycation projects, and that combined with Father's Day gift has been a renovation of my bike.
Yes.
Direction. And those that don't know, I'm an enthusiastic cyclist. I used to be a very good cyclist, but I'm older and fatter and more risk averse. So
you don't want to spoil those good looks.
yeah. We used to do crazy things. Crazy things. Used to go to abandoned quarries and drop off 30 feet into chalk and all kinds of stuff.
It wasn't quite that bad, John, but yeah.
those days have gone. But I am so frustrated right now with the bike market because of standards compliance. Yeah, there was a time when stuff just worked with each other more or less. I mean, headsets were 1.25 inches, hubs had us 110 or 135 millimeters, and it's just gone to hell. And I completely blame Shimano and SRAM, which are the two big companies involved, and they just keep changing the standards. And I've got an older bike, and I like my bike, and I want to continue to buy stuff.
Yeah.
And it's got to the point where you've got to go to eBay to find 30-year-old, you know, five parts that haven't been built for 5 years.
Yeah.
And they've built something better and new, but it isn't better and new. It's just different. And it's just so frustrating. And you know, I've
but
just
isn't
about
that just the mobile phone market just in general?
I was just about to say, aren't you an iPhone user?
Well, but yes and no. So a bike, you know, my bike frame is as good as it was the day I bought it in 2007.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was expensive. The bikes are really expensive.
Yeah. Yep. Well, they're well, you can spend as much as you like. The gap between what is okay and what is good, what is excellent, is quite large.
Yeah, but you know, in my mind, there's a beauty to some of the parts. And I love, for example, the parts from a company called DT. It's a Swiss-based company. And they just make the quality of machinery that they build is so beautiful. And that's kind of like one of my little mini passions. So anyway, and it takes hours and hours of research to figure out which part is going to be compatible with your bike now. And is this with this and this, and you it's just so frustrating. And I think they think they're going to make more money. I just think it confuses the hell out of customers, and it makes people like me that like to do it at home, makes it so much harder because you know, you're constantly trying to get up to speed. I mean, whilst I was making a decision
get
of
up
what
to
to
speed.
buy, get up to speed. Very good. Whilst I was making a decision of what to buy, Shimano released another set of things which takes things to 12 speeds on the back. It was 11 before, and now it's up to 12.
Seriously?
Yeah. And they
so you could have 36 gears on your bicycle quite easily.
No. So that changed as well. So you typically have one chain ring at the front, maximum two, one or two.
Okay.
So you can have a 24 36 or 26 38, something like that at the front, and then and the rear you then have an 11 44, or you can have a single 36 and then you have an 11 53. You have it's like a dinner plate at the back. So anyway, it's a shame. Shimano, if you're listening, I'm sure you're not, please fix it.
On the bright side, I can tell you that in various chat channels, I've had messages saying that this is really good and interesting to watch. I've had messages saying I care so little about the business stuff. So it was just someone observing your white paper, Chris, saying that as someone who is an implementer, then this person is firmly an implementer. They just don't care about the reliability position. Just not interesting to them.
Oh, that's up to them. That's fair enough.
And then the bike stuff has been described as BS. So, you know, we're doing well from a listener feedback perspective.
BS in terms of what?
The same person.
BS in terms of what I'm saying, or BS in terms of the Shimano's actions.
Well, you can ask Lloyd in your own good time.
I don't imagine Lloyd, I'm pretty certain he doesn't know how to ride a bike.
He doesn't really venture outside the house, does he?
No.
He's more of an indoor cat. But there we go. Right, we're heading towards the hour. Final thoughts, guys. Let's go around the room. John, final thoughts from you?
I mean, I'm still interested to learn a little bit more about the Google Anthos thing and sort of start to understand what that means. It really feels like this is the world we're moving into, and I'm really interested to see, you know, and I'll have these conversations with the guys at SAP. You know, how does NetWeaver get containerized? Because then, you know, then we can really, I think it just gets so interesting. So,
I think from me, it would be really interesting in a future episode if you're having those conversations, see if someone is willing to have a chat about it. Because I think that people would find that topic quite interesting. Not necessarily to divulge roadmap, because guess what, they won't do that. But at least talk about the concepts and the challenges. So at least we could discuss those in a bit more detail.
Yep. Try and get Garrett on.
Garrett, if you're watching.
Yeah, you're next. Chris,
we will find you. Well, I'm just as you all know, the challenge, it is Thursday. I have less than 24 hours left before I go on vacation. So it is the mad scramble to get stuff out the door, off my plate.
But you know that last day is the
else.
most productive day you'll ever have, right? You know that, right?
No. Monday will be the most productive day I ever have, not Friday. Okay. So Monday will be the most productive day, and where people are asking questions going, I can't make head or tail of your notes here, so please tell me what is going on. But no, fine. I'm just looking forward to vacation and spending time with the kids and playing with the power washer and
your 4 Raspberry Pis.
And my 4 Raspberry Pis, yes. So,
well, on that note, Chris, enjoy your vacation. John, thank you as always, and thanks everybody for watching. See you next time.
Cheers.
See you guys. Bye.
Bye.